Hey everyone, this is Mike from the Comic Book Trove here today with another Omnibus review, and today I'm going to be taking a look at the Excalibur Omnibus Volume 1. This is a really interesting series. I think it's certainly quite a unique comic series from Marvel. It was a title that spun out of a couple of different things really. It came about from the aftermath both of the Captain Britain comics that had preceded it, and also as a direct result of the aftermath of the X-Men Fall of the Mutants event as well. And I'll talk a little bit about how it connects to both of those books. But these are two books which I have actually reviewed independently on the channel already prior to this, so feel free to check those out. I'll put links in the description to those if you want to do so. But here and now I'm going to take a look at Excalibur in more detail today. So I'm going to give an overview of the book, dive in, showcase some of the artwork, the contents in more detail, and just share some of my thoughts on it. So stick around and we'll take a look at Excalibur. Okay, so here we are with the Excalibur Omnibus Volume 1 then. So before we dive in, I'll just clarify that this is a second printing of the book that I've got here, which came out earlier on this year and which I was very happy to add to my collection because the first printing of the book, as I remember it, disappeared very quickly after it came out. It seemed to immediately go out of print and become unavailable, at least over here in the UK, which is quite ironic given the setting of this team and the premise of it. But yeah, I couldn't get it for absolutely ages. It was very difficult for me to get a hold of until finally this reprint did come out, so that was a great opportunity to pick the book up, and one which I'm happy to finally add to my collection at this point. Now, let's just take a look at the dust jacket then. This is the standard variant cover piece of artwork by Alan Davis and Paul Neary. This is the cover to Excalibur issue 1, and which showcases the team lineup really well. I always liked that cover. The spine as well is really nice with this Excalibur logo. I think the sword running through the logo is always a cool idea. And then we've got the issue, volume 1, of course, and then an image of Captain Britain down at the bottom. I believe it's an image of Meghan if you have the DM variant cover of this book. On the back then, we've got this sword is drawn, exclamation, and then the gallery of covers of the different issues collected in here. And then down at the bottom, you get the actual full list of contents there. But it's a big chunk of Excalibur issues in here. It's the special edition graphic novel that kick-started it all off. The first 34 issues then of the ongoing series, and a couple of other things as well that are included. It's just also showcased this beautiful bit of wraparound artwork that's on the hardcover itself, again by Alan Davis, and it's like a poster image of the whole team. Really cool with this kind of Stonehenge setting in the background as well, very kind of mystical kind of thing going on. I really like that. And as we dive in here then, as I touched upon in my introduction, the whole premise of Excalibur and this team, it really came about as a result of both continuing onwards with Captain Britain's stories from the comics, which had been written by the likes of Alan Moore and Jamie Delano prior to this. And also it comes as part of direct aftermath of the Fall of the Mutants event as well, which I'm going to talk about a little bit. So I want to give a spoiler warning here before I go into the book any further for Excalibur itself, and also a little bit for Fall of the Mutants as well, because I just want to talk a bit about the ending of that to give some context for this book. I know that some people, in fact probably a lot of people, are already aware of what goes on in that event, but for anybody who isn't and doesn't want me to ruin it for them here, just a fair warning. But basically, as of the opening of this story, this is the special edition one-shot graphic novel thingy, whatever you want to call it, that sets the tone for the whole series with these characters coming together for the first time. So we've got Kitty Pryde and Nightcrawler and Rachel Summers all coming over from the X-Men side of things. And they are all here because they believe, as far as they're aware, that the X-Men died as a result of what happened towards the end of Fall of the Mutants, where they seemingly sacrificed themselves on live TV because it was being recorded. The whole world pretty much thinks that the X-Men are dead. Now, of course, they aren't, and their adventures were going on in Uncanny X-Men, also being written by Chris Claremont, who was writing this at the same time. And the reasons for why they are not clarifying to those that they know that they are dead are kind of explored there. But here and now in this story, as far as Nightcrawler, Kitty Pryde are aware, like I say, those characters are gone. But then we also get a lot of characters and story elements and concepts coming in directly from Captain Britain as well. For example, this character here, Gatecrasher, and her kind of gang of alien bandits, mercenaries, whatever they are exactly, all these characters anyway. They're all coming over, as I say, from Captain Britain, and I would say overall, this series, Excalibur, draws a lot more from Captain Britain comics than it does from X-Men or from anything else. So it's got that kind of wackiness and silliness that is so prevalent in those Captain Britain comics and series. If you've read those, then you know exactly what this is going to be like. If you've read those, chances are you've probably read this as well, because it's such a kind of perfect sequel in a way to those comics. But yeah, so these X-Men characters, they get drawn into it all here with Megan and Captain Britain himself. And then by the end of this story, they kind of agree to stick together because they think that they can do some good. They can fight to both preserve Professor Xavier's dream of, general world peace, but focus it on, trying to do some good in the UK. And then you get this nice final page here by Alan Davis with the team uniting for the first time before we jump into the ongoing. And then before you know it, these X-Men characters are all in Captain Britain's world of coming across war wolves and I don't even know what else, lots and lots of weird wackiness, but that is the real tone of this series. It's weird, it's wacky, it's often quite surreal and bizarre. It's definitely a bit more of a light-hearted, tongue-in-cheek kind of series than Uncanny X-Men was, which of course was the other big project that Chris Claremont was working on, and I think he really probably relished the opportunity to let loose a little bit in this series and explore some of the wilder ideas that he maybe couldn't get away with in Uncanny X-Men. And his collaboration with Alan Davis, it has to be said, is just a perfect match. I think the two of them clearly worked well together, and this series just has that kind of fun feel to it as you're reading through it. I think that's the key thing I can say about it, because I can get a lot of enjoyment out of these weird sorts of stories like this. So it's something that I recommend if you're into that kind of strange, odd storytelling style with just weird goings-on occurring all the time. But there are serious moments, This isn't all a jokey series. It's not completely comedic all the way through. There are certainly more dramatic and mature moments. I would say, for example, there's an ongoing love triangle between Captain Britain, Megan, and Nightcrawler. Megan and Captain Britain are together, but there's also this flirtatious relationship that she has going on with Nightcrawler that develops through here. So that leads to a bit of conflict now and then. You've got Rachel Summers and her ongoing identity crisis. She tries to figure out where she fits into this world because, of course, she comes from the Days of Future Past storyline originally, set in the post-apocalyptic dystopian future, where mutants were all but destroyed and those who were alive were forced into slavery. So she's from that world, but she's come back to this present where she doesn't really have a place. So she's trying to understand kind of who she is, what she should be doing, etc. There are some things that I wish were explored a little bit more. For example, right at the beginning, there's this moment where Nightcrawler seems almost suicidal and depressed to such an extreme extent because he feels as though he's struggling with survivor's guilt. He doesn't think he should be alive if the X-Men aren't. And that's actually really quite interesting. It's maybe quite grim and dark, but that is dropped a little bit too early on for my liking. It would have been cool to see that explored a bit more. But nevertheless, as I say, there are other serious things going on as well, along with weird things as well, like Kitty Pryde ending up dressed as a baby here. So it is definitely an interesting mix. Sometimes maybe the tone is quite inconsistent, but like I say, more so than it is serious, it is a bit more jokey, really. It leans more to that side, I would say. So that's the kind of thing you need to be aware of. What we're seeing here are some tie-in issues with the Inferno event early on, in which the team end up in New York. I always thought it was kind of funny that this team, which is marketed so heavily as being the UK-based super team, within about 6 issues, they went over to New York for a few issues. But, that's how it is. They're fun issues. They're very good. So I enjoy that storyline. That crossover is pretty cool. You get some cool posters as well. These pin-up images in the back of the first few issues in the series, which are always nice to take a look at. But pretty soon, you get into the first major event, or really just a long story arc of Excalibur. It's called the Crosstime Caper. And it starts with these group of alternate Earth doppelgangers of Excalibur, these Nazi versions of them, who come over into this world and they all end up fighting each other, as you'd expect. First instance here of Alan Davis stepping away from the series briefly, because he doesn't pencil every issue in here, unfortunately, as great as it would have been if he did, because I'm a great admirer of Alan Davis's art style. He's got a really clean, aesthetically pleasing style that's just so easy on the eye, in my opinion. But there's a couple of issues here. These are being penciled by Marshall Rogers, who is not an artist I'm particularly familiar with. He does a good job here, I think. It's all pretty good. Certainly not bad artwork, but I think for me, Alan Davis sets such a high standard with this series. You know, he was the original penciler of it. It looked great from the very first page that he drew. So whenever you get to an issue that he didn't draw, it's noticeable. You know, it's immediately kind of, you miss it, or I do anyway. I don't know. Let me know if you disagree or agree with that. But for me, the best Excalibur artwork is Alan Davis's Excalibur artwork. That's how I can put it, as simply as possible. But this is a one-shot as well, I think, featuring Mojo. It takes place between a couple of issues. But then we're really into the Crosstime Caper here. This runs for about 12 issues, I think. I think it's issue 12 to 24. It's a long story. It maybe goes on a little bit too long, but it's all about dimension hopping, basically. It's really, given how popular kind of the multiverse concept is these days within comics and comic book related medium like the MCU, this is, I suppose, very topical, because this is a long story in which Excalibur end up jumping between different worlds, different weird scenarios, and meeting all kinds of colourful, interesting characters as they go on this long adventure with this little mechanical robot that they have called Widget, who kind of turns into a train, if I remember rightly, and effectively he can take people to different dimensions and universes, etc. This being a good example of one of those issues, issue 16, just a really cool John Carter, Warlord of Mars kind of homage cover here. Really love that cover, I always thought that was great. But yeah, it's just weird and wacky adventures, but all fun, all generally leaning towards just being good fun. You know, that's the best way that I can describe this. It's a good series to read when you're wanting something that's not, I guess, completely serious. And like I say, it's not without its more serious moments, but yeah, all in all, very surreal stuff. But I would love to hear the thoughts of what other people think with regards to Excalibur. You know, how much of this run you've maybe read, did you enjoy it? For me, I think it's the Alan Davis stuff that's best, both when he's doing this original run with Chris Claremont, and then in volume 2 as well, which I can discuss another time, where he came back as both writer and artist. You know, any issue of Excalibur, I think, where Alan Davis featured on it really shines, and perhaps the ones that don't feature him, you know, they're noticeable by his absence as being quite different in how they seem to feel. Got an issue here though, both with a different guest writer and artist. So this is issue, what issue is it? Issue 20. Yeah, so we've got Ron Lim as the artist and Michael Higgins stepping in for Chris Claremont to write this one. And I think Chris Claremont left at about, I want to say around about issue 28, where he officially stepped away for good from this series. Some of the artwork here though, I think this is Chris Wozniak, pretty sure. Very unusual art style, definitely not in the same class as Alan Davis, as far as I'm concerned, I'm afraid to say. Apologies to anybody who likes this artwork. I don't mean to say it's bad necessarily, but it's not a style that really clicks with me. It does only last for a couple of issues though, I think. But it's a very blocky style, this. I'm not really a fan. Yeah, this issue as well is Chris Wozniak, yeah. Yeah, it's at odds with the style established by Alan Davis. Now, I'm never against an artist being replaced by somebody else, of course, but I think when there's a clash of styles between issues like there is with this artwork, that's when it's just a little bit trickier to get into it, I think, for me personally. But this is a pretty cool image, nice sort of Days of Future Past cover homage kind of thing. And here we go with, I think Alan Davis is back on this issue, and immediately the artwork looks better for it. But got to also give credit to Paul Neary as well, who was pretty much the regular inker and collaborator artistically with Alan Davis. You know, most issues that I've seen Alan Davis draw things were inked by Paul Neary, so clearly a good team, the two of those working together to produce the artwork. But yeah, all in all, whilst Excalibur is not one of my absolute favourite series, I have to say, you know, I can't claim it's one of the best things I've ever read, but it's certainly an interesting book, and it's like Captain Britain, really. It's the sort of storytelling that I'm able to have a fun time reading, even when it's not necessarily my favourite stuff. There are a couple of other good fill-in artists here, though. We've got Barry Windsor-Smith here. There's also some artwork by Rick Leonardi, who does an issue or two as well. So it's not like Alan Davis is the only good artist in here, you know, as good as his work is. There are other good artists. It's just that it's one of those where, for me, he's kind of the main artist and the one to beat when it comes to Excalibur. You know, he's just right on top of the pile, I think. But yeah, definitely would be interested in hearing the thoughts of others on this series, because, you know, I can imagine it is maybe a little bit divisive. I think you'll either like it or you really won't like it. There's probably not much of a middle ground with this sort of stuff, just because it is such a specific, unique type of storytelling. But yeah, so this is a bit where Chris Claremont has now left the book as we move into issue 31 here and 32. Scott Lobdell, I think, was the writer at this point, and did so writing it for the next. I don't know, Claremont's back again. But I think Scott Lobdell did take over from Claremont anyway, at least until Alan Davis came back for a second stint when he wrote it and drew it as well. And that's what you see a lot of that collected in the second omnibus. In fact, I think that whole run is collected in there. But then we move into the back here then, where we get the last couple of issues collected in the book. Don't remember this story particularly. It's been a while since I read some of this stuff, to be honest. I remember the early issues more. I think it's, just to say it again, I mean, I sound like such an Alan Davis fanboy here, I guess, but it's the issues that Claremont and Davis worked on within this book that are the standout ones to me. And the others, not so great. And I kind of feel that way about Excalibur as well after Alan Davis came on for the second time. I feel like after that point, when he left the book again, after what's collected in Volume 2, I think that the series kind of lost its way a little bit there as well. But, you know, people will probably disagree with that, I'm sure. And as I say, I'm happy to hear the thoughts of others at any point, whether you like this series, dislike it, have this omnibus, plan to get this omnibus, whatever it may be. Let's take a look at the extras then. I don't think there's a huge extras section in here, but there's a few. So we get what was the DM cover for the omnibus. That's pretty cool. That Union Jack background. Another piece of Alan Davis artwork. Alan Davis interview here, talking about the series. And then some character designs and sketches as well, which are pretty fun. And some house ads. There's that awesome piece of artwork I like so much. It's on the hardcover. That poster image. And then some character biographies as well. Just giving you more information about some of the characters who appear in here, really. Oh, got a page stuck together there. That's not ideal. But yeah, it happens. And yeah, a couple of trade paperback covers, I think, in the back here. The Knights of Pendragon. Actually, that's something that's getting an omnibus, I believe, soon. It's another Captain Britain related series. And then some pieces of original artwork in here as well. But yeah, overall a good book, and one that, like I say, and I was happy when I finally got the chance to pick this up and add it to my collection after missing out on it so frustratingly the first time round when it disappeared so quickly. But as always, thank you very much for sticking with me and watching this all the way through. If you've done so, I appreciate that as always. And I'll be back again soon to discuss something else.